If you are in the UK, do you know you have way more rights than they let you know about? Do you know that you actually have, in the UK, we actually have stronger protections than they have in the United States? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Hi everybody, it's Crypto Rich, and in this video we're talking about freedom and justice and sovereignty and what our natural rights are and what rights have been agreed and that are in existence within law and legislation for us. Now, before I introduce my guest, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, join my official Telegram announcements channel, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please cut it out. I get censored and shadow banned on YouTube, so please support my work on bit.ly/CryptoRich3Speak, bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey, bit.ly/CryptoRichRumble, and bit.ly/CryptoRichPodbean. All of those are censorship resistant, and of course, join my Telegram group, okay? Links in the description below. Hi, Hugh. Thank you so much for making yourself available.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yes, and I'm glad to have you here. You and we spoke a few days ago, actually about over a week ago, because I was on a Q&A for Probity, which is bit.ly/MakeWarHistory, right? Or bit.ly/Don't Pay Tax Legally. And we'll talk a bit more about that. But I also know you because you're part of the Peacekeepers channel, and the Peacekeepers offer a free course on the law. Do you just want to say a little bit about yourself and Peacekeepers? And I'm going to share the screen so people can see what that is. Before I do that, I just want to mention we're recording this on the 11th of September, and this video, which is my latest interview with Chris Coverdale, is on my channel, and it's all about how you can legally not pay tax. There's also this one here about how you can not pay council tax using another method. All right, so let's talk about this, the Peacekeepers. And this is peacekeepers.org.uk. It's a free course. What's it about?
Well, basically, it places whoever goes through the course into a position where they understand the law and how it gives the individual enormous powers.
Okay.
And the basis of it you can find in the Bill of Rights, 1688, and in a particular paragraph. And one should say that the Bill of Rights is a contract between what was then the new monarchs and the two houses of Parliament. And the contract was that whatever they produced or wrote as legislation in Parliament for the purpose of governing us, they made a promise that it would not be to the prejudice of the people. Now, that means that the person, the individual, involved in this country can say to Parliament, well, I don't like that piece of legislation and I won't consent to it. I don't know whether people can remember Theresa May back in the days when she was Home Secretary announcing on Breakfast TV that in this country we police by consent. Yeah. That particular statement she made is based in the Bill of Rights. Okay, so what people don't realize is that every one of us has got the right to say, you are presenting me with an offense under such and such a piece of legislation. It's not a crime, it's just an offense. I don't consent to that piece of legislation. And nothing can be done about it. However, this has been lost over the nearly 400 years or been hidden on purpose, because I do believe that my grandfather knew about this when he came out of school.
Right. Well, that wouldn't surprise me that it's been hidden from from us because it doesn't serve the powers that be for us to know about this.
And it doesn't serve the people who are governing for the police to know about it themselves.
Aha. Yes. And I've seen somewhere that they've dropped it from the law courses for solicitors and lawyers and stuff. They don't let.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So people have this erroneous belief that Britain doesn't have a written constitution. It actually
And
does.
they do.
It
They
actually
do.
does. Yes. Okay. And from the peacekeeper, we're going to talk about one aspect of that. But from the peacekeepers course, what do people get if they do this course, and why is it free?
Ah. It's free because if you in the current climate, if the freedom movement people charge, they are immediately seen as suspicious.
Right.
That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is that this is freely given because it is important information for people to know about, and you want to encourage people to know about it. As time goes by, and as human nature will have it, the reward will come flooding back.
Yes. And I suppose we will all be rewarded. Okay. So that's peacekeepers.org.uk. I shall link to this in the description below. And I do recommend that people sign up for the course and do the course, because then we're arming ourselves, because more and more draconian legislation is coming down the line. And one of the things that you mentioned is in the Bill of Rights, nothing can be done to the prejudice of the people. And this one, no one can knowingly impose their will upon any other without free will.
Yeah.
That would completely obviate the vaccine mandates that they wanted to bring in for health workers. Plus, in Northern Ireland, they're now consulting on a bill that would allow government officials to vaccinate people without their consent. This is a law that I think Mengele would be proud of.
Absolutely. We are facing unbelievable times.
Yes. So where is this from? Is that from the Bill of Rights as well?
Yeah, basically, it is, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
What is astounding to me about the Bill of Rights is that it is a very spiritual piece of act of law. It's so spiritual because it is demonstrably true that God has left us absolutely free to do right or wrong. I know that people will say that there's the Ten Commandments and there's the Bible, etc., etc., but all of those documents have been, all these scriptures have actually been written by men, not by God. They might have been inspired by God, but effectively God has left us free to do right or wrong. So any man who approaches one and says, do this or else, robs that God-given freedom.
Yes.
Which is why the Bill of Rights says that no legislation can come out of the Houses of Parliament that can be to the prejudice of the people. One must always be left in a position when one can judge for oneself whether this piece of legislation is to one's prejudice or not, and go from there.
That's extraordinary.
And ultimately, when it comes down to it, is what is this about? It's the freedom to get to heaven if that is what you believe. But to get to heaven, you have to exercise your free will. For you to obey legislation, just like, or the pressures that they have, for example, in China, you might end up being a good citizen, but it's only been through somebody telling you how to be good, not through evolving and developing spiritually to be good. So this is why it is actually a spiritual crime to force anybody to do that.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. And then you and I met, and we're going to talk about the Bill of Rights later. You and I met. Look, there's Hugh. You and I met on a Q&A section for probity, and I'll talk about probity. There's Chris Coverdale. Will it go? Oh, there's me. There's me. There's someone else. This is Chris. Where's Chris? There's Chris. And what this is a question and answer session for people who are following the probity process. Now, what the probity process is a very simple process where any revenue that's collected by the government, directly or indirectly, we can pay in the form of a trust, provided, and the condition of the trust is that this agency can have the money, provided they can ensure that they're not using that to violate two particular statutes, which is the International Criminal Court Act and the Terrorism Act, which prohibit UK government or anybody raising money for terrorism or genocide or carrying out those activities. So if you want to try this, the links are probitycode.org or bit.ly/don't pay tax legally or bit.ly make war history. And then what you do is you sign up for the updates. Just put your email address here, and then they will send you links to these fortnightly calls, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on a Monday evening. But you can also find out here about the trusts, about the trust documents, very simple document that you download, step-by-step process in order to, well, it does two things. One, it's a protest against war, because I don't want my government spending money on killing people. Was it 3 billion the day after election, 3 billion for Ukraine and nothing for heating payments for the elderly? No, screw that. Absolutely not. The other thing that it does is we get to keep more of our money ourselves, because this government is going to put the screws on more and more and more and more and tax us more and more and more. And we're going to get less and less for those taxes, because if you watch the stuff I do with Tom Luongo and Alex Craner, the UK government is on the hook to bondholders for billions of dollars. So they have to squeeze us to pay back the bondholders. Okay, and so that's Probity that's the Probity website. I shall link to that. And what I thought, Hugh, anything you want to say about probity?
Yes, I would like to contrast it to peacekeepers. Peacekeepers operate in the civil arena and is challenging the powers that be, HMRC, the councils, to prove our obligation to pay tax. That then links straight back to the Bill of Rights, etc., and constitutional law. Whereas probity places the government under obligation to comply to its own laws, legislation, I should say, because it has not been proven in court yet. It is only legislation, but it is the ratification of international treaties. And those two pieces of law, legislation, basically prevent money being directed towards terrorism and war crimes and genocide.
Yes.
And because the government has got a budget each year, and 10% of it approximately goes towards the military, we are contributing directly towards many wars. At the moment, we are definitely contributing to Yemen, obviously Gaza, and Ukraine. And the probity mechanism, if you're going to call it anything, is wanting to put pressure upon the government to obey its own law.
Yes, it
puts probity and what it's doing into the realm of criminal law.
Thank you for that distinction. And the two are separate organizations, but really with the same overall intention, which is to empower us. The government is there to serve us.
Yes.
We are their masters.
Yes.
Okay.
And the extra mentions I should make is that both of these mechanisms operate within the judicial arena. Legislation. We are not dealing with anything but legislation, which you can find on legislation.gov.uk.
Great. All right. Thank you. Now, I came across this article from a UK column who do really, really great work. And this article said that Britain had the First Amendment first. And it argues that the that in the UK we have stronger freedom of expression, freedom of speech rights than they have in the United States. And recently we've had instances of people writing hurty words on social media and then being banged up, given prison sentences. And I understand the people who've been given prison sentences are the ones that pleaded guilty. They said yes in some sort of plea bargain or whatever, thought they'd get a shorter sentence, when actually our freedom of speech is preserved within the Bill of Rights. Now, we could talk about this here, or if you want, whatever you think is going to serve people, is talk about the Bill of Rights in general.
Yes. So we could go for the first paragraph, which is, whereas the Lords spiritual and temporal and commons.
Yes.
So this is the House of Lords are the temporals. The spiritual is the church, obviously, and the commons are the House of Commons, assembled at Westminster lawfully, fully and freely, representing all the estates of the people of this realm, did upon the 13th day of February in the year of our Lord, 1688, present unto their majesties, then called and known by the names and style of William and Mary, being present in their proper persons, a certain declaration in writing made by the said Lords and Commons in the words following bid, i.e. So if we now scroll down quite a bit. Yes. Keep going.
Keep going.
Now, just a moment. We're up. So, the said rights claimed, that's for us, tender of the crown, regal power exercised, limitation of the crown. Limitation of the crown. So, and they do claim, demand, and insist upon all and singular the premises as their undoubted rights and liberties, this is the people, and that no declarations, judgments, doings, or proceedings to the prejudice of the people in any of the said premises ought in any wise to be drawn hereafter into consequence or example. That sentence on their own, I know it's in Old English, okay, that is it.
So that first paragraph that you read.
Yes, that's the contract between the people.
Contract between
who undertake to make sure that whatever they do in those houses, okay, so no declarations, judgments, doings, and proceedings to the prejudice of the people. They cannot do anything to our prejudice. Only us, the people, on an individual basis, decide what is to our individual prejudice or not.
Okay, a counter then. Where is the individual? Because one of the things that I think is going to emerge out of Keir Starmer's government is taking actions for the common good. That I have to have this injection because it's in order to protect you, Hugh, and it's for and others, and it's for the common good.
Yes.
So, where do you get that it's for the individual?
But this is what it all is going to end up being, is going to be a conflict between the good of all and the good of the individual. And when it comes down to it, this is where it is spiritual, is if you don't believe in God, okay, and you do believe that there are bugs out there that are out there to kill you, okay, you live in fear, and you want everybody to protect your fears, okay, to make sure that you are not fearful, and therefore you are in a position where you wish to impose your fears upon other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that it goes directly in against the fundamental human right. Okay, and those are those that can be claimed by all simultaneously without forcing others to serve them. Okay, so these are the fundamental rights for every one of us. Okay, is that we can all claim them at the same time without forcing anybody to serve us.
Right.
Okay. So the individual right is more important spiritually in every way than the total people together. And if people understand this fully, if what is right for me must be right for somebody else, the individual will always make sure that the other is safe and protected.
Or free to choose for themselves if people want to go and have the injection.
Because they can choose for themselves.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And then going back to the first paragraph, one of the plans that this government have is to do away with the House of Lords. And one of the thing of
Yeah.
how can they do that when there's no provision? This is the agreement. And for people who don't know, the Bill of Rights is the foundational document that sets up the agreement between the people with Parliament as their representatives and the Crown. The job of the Crown is to ensure that the rights of the people are preserved. Have I said that? Understood?
Yes, yes, and what is so beautiful about this is that the king, the monarch, okay, is the first among equals, and his job is to give royal assent to whatever comes out of Parliament as legislation, right? So he is there to protect us. He's one of us, and he's seeing what it is that the government, Parliament, wishes to offer as a solution to the evolving society, the evolving problems of society. And he is the one who says, I don't give my assent to this piece of legislation or not. But the monarchs have literally given up their role, which is to protect us.
They have.
And they just give their consent. The royal prerogative. They just given it away. Do you understand what I mean? They literally don't exercise their duty to protect us from unreasonable legislation.
Yes. Okay, I absolutely agree with you. And then we have a great reset king who's captured and owned, or a participating member of the WF and the whole Great Reset project.
Yeah.
So then we can't count on him. But then, on what basis could Labour try and get rid of the House of Lords? It's like, how can they get rid of that which gave them being?
They can't. But things have evolved. The Lords are no longer the Lords that they were. Yes, everybody understands, nevertheless, what this is about. The Lord's spiritual, for example, is a church. I mean, what is the church nowadays?
Yes.
What is it doing? It's lost its way completely. The landed gentry, the people who've got the assets on which people can live and earn a living. Where are they now? I mean, it's the multinational corporations that now own everything. And then in the Commons, those originally, they were all independent people. They were, they were in charge of their own opinions. Now, the whips say how each MP votes in Parliament. So there is the law. That is what we need to get back to. How it is organized within the Houses of Parliament, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but whatever it is us that decide what is prejudicial to us individually, not them. That's the law. And for them to be able to change this, we would have to have a referendum. And they would have to explain to the people what voting against this to change this meant. And once people understand what it means, every individual says, well, actually, I want to decide for myself.
Yes. And they won't tell us that, so we have to inform and educate ourselves.
Yes.
Why it's a good idea to do the Peacekeepers course, which will ground people in this plus a whole lot more. And then the other way that they might do it is by denying us access to this knowledge, by not highlighting it, not educating us, not informing us, and then putting through their nonsense legislation. Anyway, so we don't know. So we have to educate ourselves. So I will have a link to the Peacekeepers channel. So I do recommend people go and watch those videos, and please share this video far and wide. Okay, so what else do you want to talk about with regards to the Bill of Rights?
Well, I think that the Bill of Rights, I mean, one can go, it has an awful lot of detail in it, but it's a beautifully constructed piece of writing. It really is it's inspired. And it gives us, for example, we've got the right to be tried by juries. Okay, so we've got so many rights, and it is there to prevent tyrants. And originally this was for kings and queens, to stop them becoming tyrants. But what has happened is that things have evolved, and the tyrant now is number 10.
Yes. Yes, the tyrant is indeed number 10. So let's talk about the right to trial by jury, because I suppose that would also count for speeding offences or something.
Yeah, it would. Everything, you can't be fined unless you've been tried first by a jury.
No fine, fee, or conviction without. I remember that wording in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we start with juries?
Well, this is where,
I mean, in the document, in the Bill of Rights.
I can't remember exactly where it is. We would have to go through. Yes, grants of forfeitures. Can we go down to that? That all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures, particular conditions before conviction, are illegal and void. So therefore, that means that you receive in the post or a notification that you've sort of gone too fast somewhere or whatever it is, and you've got to pay a fine. You cannot. It says here, okay, you have to be tried. Otherwise, it's illegal and void. Okay. So yes, it's there is an awful lot of detail that it's there is nuance here, and you'd have to go into it because some people say that this applies only to criminal matters, but in fact it applies to civil matters as well. But it is rather nuanced to broach at the moment.
Yeah, because it says all grants and promises of fines and forfeitures, right? But then one of the defense that the government has used or government agencies have used is, say, with the penalty charge notice, which you get for speeding or a bus lane violation, is not a fine or a forfeiture. Well, it is.
Yes.
Because I'm losing something.
Yes.
Forfeiting something. So has this been used in defense against those? Do you know?
Well, there's an awful lot of people who are doing this. Peacekeepers are they've chosen council tax to test this. Okay, so people are choosing to not pay fines and face the government, or the judiciary, I should say, with the defence contained in the Bill of Rights and the Act of Settlement 1700 and the Coronation Oath Act. So it's what one chooses to do. Okay, but peacekeepers specifically have chosen council tax as the mechanism to force the judiciary to prove that we are obliged to pay that tax. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And okay, why council tax, and how's it going?
It is not going as fast as one would want. I mean, I'm in my third year of doing this, and I thought I was going to win the first year because my arguments were so good. But of course, that did not happen. but it is a slow process of getting the judges to a point where they have to come up with a reasoned judgment, because right now for council tax, a trial by jury, you would have to rely on 12 good men and women to all realize the importance of individual consent. And in the environment that we live in now, most people are so conditioned to believe that they have to look after the greater good first, rather than their own right to be good or bad. And so, yes, it is far better at this point in time to go for a reasoned judgment from judges rather than trial by jury. At some point or another, I have a very personal belief that we will get to the conflict between the greater good and the good of the individual.
Yeah.
And potentially that might, I don't know, that might be something to do with the jury.
Yes.
But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it develops.
And the greater good is an argument that's been used by totalitarians throughout history.
They all come up with it. It's just extraordinary. They are all defending the greater good.
Yeah. So Mengele
Yes.
carried out his experiments for the greater good.
Yes.
Pol Pot killed millions of Cambodians for the greater good of Cambodia.
Yeah. Mao Zedong.
Yeah, for the greater good.
For the greater good.
Yeah, was it the Hutus massacring the Tutsis for the greater good of the Rwandan nation?
It's always for the greater good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, do you want to take us through the basic rights? Where would they?
Yes, I think good.
These ones? Are these the basic?
The first section is really, it lists basically go back to subjects' rights, but the first section basically lists the wrongs of the previous king.
Right.
And then it goes into, now these are the rights.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's all, apart from the fact that it is written in Old English, this is detail. So, for example, let's go to levying money. You see, look at this. That levying money for or to the use of the crown by pretense of prerogative without grant of Parliament for longer time or in other manner than the same is or shall be granted is illegal. It's all about everything is illegal. Commissions and courts of like nature are illegal and pernicious. That's ecclesiastical courts. That's the church.
Right.
That the commission for erecting the late court of commissioners for ecclesiastical, and all other commissions and courts of like nature are illegal and pernicious. So this was to declare that, or to establish that the church should not have certain powers. So then the right to petition, that it is the right of the subjects to petition the king, and all commitments and prosecutions for such petitioning are illegal.
Now, okay, now this is part of the freedom of speech one.
It is, because it's the right to petition. Yeah, to petition the king. Now, there are some people who say that, wait a minute. Why should we be petitioning the king? You know, who is he to be petitioned? But it is a formality. And whatever it is, it reinforces the right of the subjects to actually, it's not petition, that's a polite word, is to command the king. And prosecutions for such petitioning are illegal. You can't get it clearer than that.
Yes. So this would cover the right to protest.
Yes, absolutely. And to speak out.
Yes.
And to speak out. The standing army is another one, that the raising or keeping a standing army within the kingdom in time of peace, unless it be with consent of Parliament, is against law. So there is this concept that if we're in a time of peace, okay, we've got to really look very carefully at an army, the need for an army. But those are the old days when, and don't forget that nowadays they're saying that war is not carried out in the same way, and it has all changed now. It's a war of information, and actually the true enemy, as far as the powers that be are, is that the true enemy now is the enemy within its own citizens, because they've got opinions.
Yeah.
Things have changed tremendously, but the principles are there.
Okay. All right. And then this one, here's freedom of speech, that the freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in Parliament ought not to be impeached or questioned in any court or place out of Parliament. Now, I think there's somewhere else that comes up about freedom of speech. Here we go. That the freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in Parliament ought not to be impeached or questioned in any court or place out of Parliament. Now, when I read this, I can read it like that, the freedom of speech and debates or proceedings in Parliament. So this could be referring to freedom of speech outside of Parliament.
Yeah.
As well as the proceedings in Parliament ought not to be impeached or questioned in any court or place out of Parliament. But it can also be read that it's only referring to parliamentary.
Well, yeah. It is admittedly ambivalent, but what is the ambition of the whole document?
The ambition of the whole document is that
the individual, the people should be free to speak their mind.
And no laws or acts to our prejudice.
Yeah. So that's the substance over the form. So you could say that the form of this sentence in Old English is confusing, but what is the substance of the whole document? And it is about our rights.
Yes. That's very good. Okay. All right. And then that's consistent with the style of it. And then that excessive bill or not to be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments. Well, sending somebody down for 2 years for hurty words.
Yes.
Them expressing their freedom of speech, that would be cruel and excessive.
That would be cruel and excessive.
So do you know of instances where people have referred to the Bill of Rights in order to preserve their own freedoms and liberties?
Well, this is why it is so important for the peacekeeper civil movement, really, to progress. Really, we've got to get there. We've got to reestablish this. Once it is established that we have got the right to say, well, actually, I don't consent to the Local Government Finance Act 1992. I just don't consent to it, and that's it. You can't, nobody can say. It doesn't mean that you become a bad citizen. It just means that you've got the right to exercise your free will in this matter. And the way people are, okay, people want to be good. So if they can see that a government is actually saying, well, for us to be able to afford to do this or afford to do that, okay, we need this much in tax. But right now, for example, okay, here we are, an obedient nation, paying taxes in order to let all of these immigrants in who have rights. Okay, they've got so much per week, and they're fed and housed, etc., etc. And we've got our own people living in the street, trying to survive. We've got pensioners suddenly losing their winter fuel allowance. And there is something that's gone completely wrong in the way that we are governed.
Yeah, but you don't forget the sexualization of children.
Let's not go there.
That.
Yeah. Yeah. So there we are being faced with a government that has lost its marbles.
Yeah.
Okay. But if it is established that we have got the right to say no, suddenly the government is going to say, wait a minute, we can't do that to the people because they won't like it. So we won't pass legislation that means that we can put citizens in prison because they have written a tweet, a post, an ex post that we didn't like.
Yep. Okay. Now, one last one, then I'm going to ask you the final question, which is, there's something here. Let me find it, which I think is just makes this incredible. Maybe I haven't spelled it correctly, because there's something in here that these rights last forever.
Yes.
Where is that bit?
No, I can't remember exactly where it is, so I can't help you there.
Okay, but this is important. There are currently no known outstanding effects for the Bill of Rights, meaning there's been no substantive changes to it whatsoever.
That's right.
Still
And
valid.
Betty Booth Lloyd, back in whenever it was, this is recent history, said that the Bill of Rights was current legislation. And yet, the other day, one of our lot went into court and mentioned the Bill of Rights, and the judge said, "Oh, that's old." So the judiciary, some of the judges actually don't know the law.
Yes.
And we have to take the view that there is no ill will involved here. Because we've got no proof, we've got no evidence. So the least aggravating position to put oneself in is to conclude that the judiciary, the solicitors, the barristers don't actually know the law.
I think that fits. I've got friends who are lawyers and they don't know about the Bill of Rights. Okay, and it is a bill, it's not an act of Parliament, because this gave rise to Parliament.
Yeah.
They can't have passed it. Okay, and other constitutional acts, the Coronation Oath Act.
The Coronation Oath Act, and let's not forget our present king, said those words. Okay, people say, well, no, he had his hands behind him and he was crossing his fingers, so he thinks that it doesn't count. No, he said them in public.
Yep.
He is bound by those words he said. And the Coronation Oath Act is 1688 as well, and he is duty bound. And the Act of Settlement is important because it actually states in it that the birthright of the people is the law.
Oh.
Yeah. So my claim is that I have the right to the law. So when you go into a magistrate's court at the moment, and I was in the magistrate's court only 3 weeks ago now, and faced the magistrates and the legal advisor I was Mackenzie friend to somebody, and this lady did an absolutely amazing job of being able to face the bench and say to them that the Bill of Rights gave her the right to pick and choose which legislation she consented to, and upon which the legal advisor said, no, we are here for the Local Government Finance Act 1992, and you can defend yourself within that. And so this young lady just said, well, in that case, we are in a court of administration, because you're not giving me the right to use the law, all the law. And they said, no, this is a common law court. And so the young lady just said again, okay, in that case, I've got the right to consent to whatever I choose. No, we're here for the Local Government's Finance Act, said the legal advisor. And it went round and round and round until finally she decided that she would just abandon that one, and she then used the Chris Coverdale mechanism, and she said, well, actually, I have paid tax into trust. And the paying into trust means that you have paid it. And she distributed the document to the bench and the council, and they looked at it. Oh, and she did warn them that she just said, and I must warn you that if you make me pay any taxes now, you will be criminally involved in this due to the Terrorism Act 2000 and the International Criminal Court Act 2001. And so they read the documents, or skim read it, I should say, then looked at each other, decided to go disappear into the chambers, and then came back 10 minutes later. Okay. And this is where you have to realize that it is very difficult for people to grasp how important these matters are. Here is legislation, I can't call it law yet, it's legislation, it's not been tested in court, that is potentially making a magistrate party to criminal activity. And they decided to ignore it. Really, what should happen is that each magistrate and the legal advisor receive it, realize, wait a minute, I can't do this, and the whole thing stops. But because it's tunnel vision, this can't possibly be, I can't check it right now, let's go back to the Local Government Finance Act 1992, which is, it's proof that this is a court of administration. So this is what is being tested in court at the moment.
Right. Thank you for that. And this is why it's important for us to know what our rights are. I'm going to have to look at the Act of Settlement from what you've told me. Nothing can be done to the prejudice of people, and these rights are for perpetuity.
Yeah.
So go and do the Peacekeepers course. Go and check out the Peacekeepers channel. Go and check out Probity. Go to one of these fortnightly calls if you have any questions and answers, and you can find out about yourself how the process works. Go do this. Stop paying tax. Stop funding war. Keep your money for yourself so you can keep your granny warm, because the government ain't going to do it. And let's stay free. Hugh,
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to say before we finish up?
No, it's just, people need to realize that governments worldwide have become tyrants. There are many more of us, and we are actually mostly fairly intelligent, and we need to regain our power.
Yes, and we are growing in number.
Mm-hmm.
Hugh, thank you so much. Called you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to having you on again. Comments, questions, share this video far and wide, especially amongst the freedom movement. And between now and when I see you next, stand for peace and justice and freedom and sovereignty. Crypto Rich and Crypto Hugh signing out. All the best. I should say Peacekeeper Hugh. Thank you.